Welcome back. Well, markets in a decent spot at this point in time. As we were telling you, 5 stocks in the green for 1 in the red. And the Nbfcs are having a field day today with gains logging between 4 and 5% in several of the bigger stocks. But the NBFC sector has gone through some amount of problems because of the second wave. So speaking on behalf of the FIDC and the NBFCs, Mr. Sanjay Chamria, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Magma FinCorp, joins us. Mr. Chamria, good morning. Thank you very much. Well, first up, as an organization, what are the FIDC's worries, and are you looking for any policy help?
Yeah, good morning, Lata. And FIDC, as you know, represents the interest of the NBFCs, which are principally catering to the MSMEs in the country. And amongst the 65-70 million MSMEs, the large part of the resources for the bottom end, which is the micro and the small, they are being catered by the NBFCs. And in the last year, when the first wave of COVID hit, that time both the MSME Ministry and the RBI worked very proactively to address a lot of issues. One, in terms of providing the liquidity support, reducing the interest rate, providing the interest subvention, giving the guarantee under the ECLGS, extending this program called CGTMSE, which is a government guarantee program administered through Fidc. And then very successfully we came out of the COVID crisis, and the NBFC and the MSME survived. Of course, not to forget the mention of the moratorium, which was allowed till August 2020. Unfortunately, what has happened, after 15th of March, the second wave of COVID, and that has really become very severe. And as we talk today, whether it is MP, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, UP, NCR, so many states are getting into lockdowns at a local level and curfews being implemented in the night time. Thereby, the truck movements have got restricted, the freight rates have fallen down, the utilization have fallen. And therefore, what at FIDC we are expecting, and we have just sent our representation both to the MSME Ministry and the RBI, is to provide us the support so that the recovery that we made last year, that doesn't go west, and we are again able to support the MSMEs, which has shown the resilience after the moratorium ended in August. And you see from September to March.
Mr. Chamria, 1 minute. I didn't get what exactly you are asking. You told me a great deal about your problems. Are you all asking for CGT, MSC to continue? Are you asking for moratorium to continue? What are the specific asks?
So we have 3 asks to the RBI and 3 asks to the MSME Ministry. If I talk about RBI, then our principal ask is to provide the liquidity support to NBFCs for on-lending to the MSMEs, so that the last mile credit delivery can be provided to the MSMEs who need the money the most at the present time. The second one is that retail and the wholesale trade is excluded from the definition of the MSMEs. And this is without any reason. And there are a large number of them who are playing a very important role, and they are denied the benefit of the priority sector lending under the MSME because of this exclusion. So we have also sought that retail and the wholesale trade be included within the beneficiary framework. And the third ask from RBI that we have had is that, like last year, they allowed us to restructure the MSME accounts which were standard but were finding it difficult to make the payment of installments due to COVID. Now we are saying that out of 7 installments, if they have paid minimum 4 or more, that means even on 31st March, they are a standard account. We should be allowed to restructure them once again if they do not have enough cash flow. So these are our 3 principal asks from RBI.
All right.
Similarly, to the MSME Ministry also.
So we got the.
Yeah.
Sure, we got what the ask is, but I wanted to also understand, and I went through the FIDC proposal as well. I wanted to understand what is the situation on the ground, because 25% of your own book comes from the rural sector, about 43% comes from semi-urban. How bad is the situation right now, given that the hinterland, rural hinterland is seeing such a big surge in COVID cases?
Yeah, which is exactly what I was telling you in the beginning when you said that I'm talking about the problem. So what we find that today almost about the hinterland, the Chhattisgarh, MP, UP, Rajasthan, parts of Punjab, and Maharashtra, they are living under the local level curfews and the lockdowns, and this has resulted in the business of the small businesses being disrupted, the truck movements not being allowed, and therefore people are finding it difficult. In fact, even a lot of our field guys have contacted COVID. So they can't even contact customers. So how do you service them? How do you collect installments from them? How do you provide further credit support to them? So this is the situation at a ground level, and the situation is spreading far. Even in Tamil Nadu, they have said that they will go for a curfew and a restriction on the movement. So to combat with all of these things, we are saying once again, the RBI and the government should proactively come out with the relief packages to help this MSME sector, which is playing such an important role.
Okay. I just wanted to, Mr. Chamria, I wanted to get your, specific input on the retail trade bit. Is there some confusion? Are they not counted as MSMEs right now? And what would your exposure be? For instance, your company's exposure to the segment. And, is there a threat of delinquencies already building up?
So you see, it's a good question. See, till 2013, there was this harmonization concept wasn't there between the MSME Ministry and the RBI. And RBI had its own definition and MSME Ministry had its own definition. However, from 2017, they have actually come out with the definition under the MSME Act, and in which the retail and the wholesale trade have been excluded. Whereas if you look at last year ECLGS program and the CGTMSE program, in these two programs they have included the retail and the wholesale trade. Now RBI last year, I think in August 2020, came out with a scheme on the MSMEs in which they have harmonized the definition as per the definition under the MSME Act. Due to this, and I would say inadvertently, the retail and the wholesale trade have been excluded, and which I don't think is the intent of the government. And therefore, we have represented that while we are agitating before the MSME Ministry to have them included, but RBI should, at least for a period of 1 year till the time the Act gets amended, should allow retail and wholesale trade also to get the benefit. Coming to the second part of your question, retail and the wholesale trade, you have the shopkeepers, the stockists, distributors, CNF agents, all of these, they are actually excluded from the definition of services. And if they are excluded, they don't get the benefit of the ECLGS, they don't get the benefit of CGTMSE, they don't get the benefit of priority sector lending. And this is where we believe that the support is needed.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chamria, I mean, just hypothetically, if your plea is not heard, what kind of damage do you see to NBFC asset quality? The HDFC Bank numbers over the weekend didn't show too much by way of slippages. In fact, the quarterly slippages were less than the previous quarter. But that's a large bank. For the NBFC sector, what is your ballpark assessment?
So, Lata, I think this is where we need to just see the nuances of lending. Today, HDFC Bank or a premier bank, even within the MSMEs, they will lend to the higher end of the small and the medium enterprises and with the security, because they have the pricing power and they have deeper pockets, and therefore they would lend to the creamy layer of the MSMEs. Whereas the vast majority of the MSMEs are the vulnerable, and they are borrowing less than 10 lakhs and they are in the tier towns, and which is where the NBFCs provided the last mile connectivity. And these people are the most volatile and the vulnerable lot, and whenever there is a downturn, they actually have a stress on their cash flows. Now, if you look at the NBFCs as a whole, I won't have the data right now as to how much is on account of the retail and the wholesale trade, but over 70% of the portfolio of most of the NBFCs that we at FIDC represent, that actually goes to other priority sector, and in which we have the marginal farmers, taxi drivers, truck operators, machine operators, small shopkeepers. Whole host of them are impacted, and those who then come under retail and wholesale trade, they are not getting the benefit.
Okay, since you spoke about truck operators, in your capacity as Magma FinCorp as well, you do finance a lot of these commercial vehicle manufacturers, you do a lot of agri finance, construction equipment. We have within the truck space as well seen a big fall in truck rentals. Do you think that the NPAs overall for the business could rise further because of how vulnerable some of these pockets have been? And are we staring at 7-8% gross NPAs for the business as well in FY22?
So you see the NBFC, if you look at the overall NPAs, they have been predicted by CRISIL and the other trade bureaus that they will be in the range of about 6 to 7% and gross NPAs. And with about 35 to 40% coverage, the net NPAs would be in the range of about 4 to 4.5%. In FY22, most of the companies, they had carried good amount of COVID provisions, and therefore the COVID strain, which if it is extending in FY22, the provision that they would start this year, that will help them to cushion the impact of further rise in the NPAs. And this is where we believe that between October to March, they have handled the situation very well, and we have not seen impact on the profitabilities as much, and they have returned to normalcy. But now is the time when for both the government and the RBI and the industry to act decisively together so that we can fight this COVID wave and it does not impact the NPA asset quality or the profitability of the NBFCs, and we are able to provide the support to the micro and the small enterprises for whom we exist today.
Okay. Point taken, sir. There is trouble ahead, especially perhaps for the lenders to the smaller companies and to the microfinance institutions. Thank you very much, Sanjay Chamria, for joining us. We will touch base with you after Magma FinCorp's numbers itself. The market has received the reality check that you gave us with a bit of a shudder, if you please, profit taking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I went from 1% up move, we're down to a 0.5% up move on the Nifty.